Have not because you ask not. That is the quote in today's planner. Today is Friday, January 19th, 2024. Quote submitted by John Bannon. You know, I did a whole season of asking for just this reason. I was having a conversation with Tim Story, celebrity coach, Oprah Winfrey's life coach, Tim Story. And I was like, Tim, dude, how do you get some of the things that you got in life? He said, bro, I asked for it. I asked. He said, Glenn, you need to ask more. I spent a whole year asking. It transformed everything. So listen, John, I'm with you. You have not because you ask not. Ladies and gentlemen, if there's some things that you want in your life, get out there and ask for them. Good morning and welcome to Rise and Grind Live. Unlock your full potential with the power of daily motivation, education, inspiration with your host, Glenn Lundy, a husband to one, father to 8, global motivational speaker, and the author of The Morning 5.
I'm Heather Parody, former therapist turned online entrepreneur and wannabe comedian.
Celebrity interviews, transformational information, and a massive community around the number one morning show in the world. It's 5:30 a.m. and it's time to rise and grind. Hey, good morning, good morning, good morning. How are you, my friend? How are you, my friend? Dude, today is Friday. That's right. Today is Friday, January 19th, 2024. And what's crazy is today is the very first and the very last time it'll ever be Friday, January 19th, 2024. So I want to make sure we make the absolute most, and I do mean the absolute most, of this absolutely incredible, incredible day. I'm super excited because we have an incredible guest with us today, a guy named Anthony Trucks. This dude's got an unbelievable story. He has come from like this unbelievable background, literally, truly unbelievable. And I've said that before on this show. You're like, really, Glenn? Unbelievable? Like, unbelievable story. And so I'm excited to bring him onto the show, the impact that he's making in his life now. And yes, ladies, he is married. I know. Look at this. He's a good looking guy. I get it. All right. But I'm just warning y'all now. Y'all got to back up. Speaking of ladies, I've got the one and only Heather Parody with me today as well. Hi, Heather. How are you?
Let's go. This week has been so good. Being present with yourself. You asked some hard questions this week, my friend. My goodness. But I'm really excited about today.
I am too. So we're going to get right to it. This guy, Anthony Trucks, is going to be here. Before we do, though, you know what we got to do on this show. We got to do some dancing. We got to get these bodies in motion. An object in motion stays in motion. An object at rest stays at rest, right? So let's get moving this morning. And for those of you that know and those of you that don't know, this is the part of the show where I need you to hit that share button. Trust me, you're gonna want to share this out. This guy's absolutely incredible. Hit the share button. This is also the part of the show where we're gonna say good morning to you. You say good morning to me, whether you're watching live, you're watching on replay, you're watching live, or you're watching on replay. We're gonna say good morning to you. You're gonna say good morning to us. So I'm gonna say good morning to Vicki Everett. I know she's here with us this morning. Gail B. Craft, great to see you. Miss Liza Myers-Borges in the building. Scott Simons, Don Sankey, Young Johnson, and so many more. Thanks for being here with us. But listen, I'm not going to drag this out. My guy Anthony's in the building. He is amazing. So we're going to bring him in right after this. Check this out.
We're going to turn now to our next guest, who is teaching people how to take control and shift their life in order to find their true identity.
As a former NFL athlete, as a past contestant on NBC's show American Ninja Warrior,
international speaker, host of the Awe Shift podcast, and the founder of Identity Shift Coaching.
He has this glow and this joyous just smile about him. He loves life, but the guy had to friggin' earn it, as you will hear. He's been through so much and so many challenges in his life. He's been in that place where, as many of us know and have been, where we're like seeking and trying to figure out, like, what's our identity?
Identity for me was a very big question. Who am I? We've all asked the question. The answer is the one it's convoluted, it's hard to find the true answer to, but I was like, who's Anthony? I want to have a moment someday where I'm looking at my life going, this is how I feel. Like this. Because that's what you want. You want the moment where you wake up and people look at you and go, how did you do that? Right? That moment is waiting for you. But you got to lean in, you got to shift to go get it. I can't give it to you. Because here's the one thing we don't focus on, don't realize, is that you are the common denominator in all of your problems. My mom called social services and said, I no longer want my kids, take them. Now this is the moment I was given into foster care. At 6 years old, I ended up in a family which is now my current family. My adoptive mom, she said, hey, you know what? We love you, we're gonna adopt you. So I got to this point where I got to go do this cool thing, which was hitting people and not getting in trouble. I sucked. I literally was not very good at the game of football. I played in the NFL later, but I started horrible. When I was 14, when I actually got adopted, my mom was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. And then my dad and I, we locked eyes and we realized this is that moment. And we look at my mom and she inhales. And exhales her final breath. See, she had promised me she'd love me and be here and be part of my life in a way that didn't make logical sense. And she did that. On the flip side, I made two promises. Promise one was, Mom, I'm gonna figure this thing out. Statistically, I shouldn't be here. I'm gonna make it right, I'm gonna make this life right somehow. Somehow I'm gonna do it. And two, when I do it, I'm gonna do what you did for me. You loved me unconditionally, didn't make sense, and you made me reach a higher potential than should have been part of my life. So promise two was, Mom, when I figure it out, I'm gonna teach it to the world the best way I can.
Make shift happen. Making the necessary shift to accomplish something so great, you're overwhelmed with positive emotion.
Anthony Trucks, what can I say? First off, he is one of the most amazing speakers I've ever seen on stage. His stage presence is insane. His ability not only to get people to laugh and get them to cry, but most importantly, to transform. Grateful for Anthony. He's amazing. If you have a chance to have him speak at your events, do it. He will transform your audience. He'll change their lives.
His background is so inspiring and empowering. His messages and his frameworks and the way that he teaches is so captivating and so motivating that he's become one of the most popular speakers I've ever had on my stages or around a platform. He's absolutely astounding and an incredible speaker and a truly remarkable and good human. Anthony Trucks, I couldn't recommend him any higher.
Life is a collection of experiences. And I believe the meaning of life is to have more good ones than bad ones. To build ourselves and those around us into the absolute best versions of ourselves possible. Because the last person you should ever have to meet on your deathbed is the person you could have been. That's why it's imperative that you stop waiting for the perfect time and make this the perfect time by deciding
It is time for you to go out and make shift happen. Thank you.
Come on. Come on.
Wow.
That's
it. That's the show. That's the show.
I feel it's a gift because I rarely get to actually watch that video, because usually it's something where companies get that before I potentially become a speaker. But it's interesting to get to watch and oh man, I've really had a blessed opportunity to do what I do. So thank you for having me on. I genuinely appreciate this time with you guys.
Thanks for being here, man. And I gotta tell you, in that video, you go from your mom chose to give you up, and then you said you met your mom that you spent the most of your life with at age 6, but there was a gap in between there, right? Mm-hmm. There's a gap. How many years was that gap between when your mom made that choice and when you landed in the family that you grew up with?
There was so I was given away at 3, and then from 3 to 6 there were 6 different homes, including that actual home. And then I landed there at 6 years old, but I wasn't actually adopted for another 8 years. So I was in the system for 11 years. So it's which most people go, but it was the same house. And I go, yeah, same house. But because you're still in the system, not adopted, they could come grab you literally any day and take you to a new place without any rhyme or reason to it. And so for me, it was every day for years, you're gosh, I hope I get to go to bed in this place I woke up. So it just really, it sets on your heart this really interesting separation of you want to connect, but you don't want to connect with the opportunity of it being ripped away. So for a lot of years, I wouldn't let that family love me because the fear of, I may love this family, they may actually keep me, but if all of us have to get ripped and go away, that would be hard. So I always kind of kept this emotional separation, to be honest.
Yeah, I think.
And coupling that with, I'm sorry.
No, you're good. Go ahead.
Coupling that with the 3 years from 3 to 6, I mean, what you experienced in those is just insanely traumatic.
Yeah, it was
right?
probably, yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's
talk to our audience a little bit about that for those that don't know what happened from 3 to 6.
The foster care system is interesting. So I'm California, right? So there's 400,000 foster kids in California. I think 700 new kids enter the foster care system every single day it's not the United States, if minimum just California. And so the problem is there's not a lot of oversight. And back in 1986, when this is going on, there was no video cameras, there's no social media. You have no idea how to like report stuff. And here's an interesting little caveat. When you're a foster kid, all you want to do is go home. And so the logic for a lot of us is, well, if I'm so bad, these people won't keep me, they'll send me back to where I want to go. And that's not how it works. They send you to worse places. So for me, not only was I kind of like the kid that was like trying to tell these people, like the social workers, hey, there's some bad stuff going on. They're already looking at me like this, kind of plain wash of like, no, all kids say this. So I had people beat me, that would starve me, put me in chicken coops, force me to chase chickens to earn meals. They wouldn't feed me. If I did get, a meal, be great. If I didn't, I'd steal food and get beat for it. I was put in shopping carts and pushed down hills towards moving traffic. I was pushed out of moving cars. I was forced to lick the bottom of people's shoes. Like there's just like, I can vividly remember all of these things. Like I even know the like geographical locations of most of these homes. And the problem is, like for a lot of years and for a lot of kids, it eats you up. And so that's why if you look at prisons in America, 75% of inmates have spent time in foster care. And I believe it's because we get this world kind of hurts us. And so we go, let me hurt the world. There's a revenge mentality. And so I see why so many people go do like criminal activities just to kind of get back at the world for what's done to them as kids.
75%. I had no idea. I had no idea that was the thing. That's incredible. You landed in a wonderful place in the end.
I did.
Landed in a wonderful place, but still took a lot of that with you, that fight and the negative treatment when you were young, and turned it into fuel that turned you into quite the beast moving forward. You mentioned identity and our ability to kind of choose what that looks like. Talk to me a little bit more about that. You and I can go for hours on this identity thing, but I'm gonna keep my mouth shut over here, and I would love for you to go into that a little bit more on the identity piece and our opportunity to choose.
Yeah, of course. I mean, and we all have the choice every single day. For me, I grew up in that family. We were really poor. So I was like the only black kid in a really poor all white family. So I make a really off-color joke, pun intended, that I grew up poor white trash. Just go with it for a minute.
I'm with you.
It's a weird joke. We had some levity because when you had that situation, you have to find joy in some manner. So that was our kind of jokes and playfulness. But you start to question, like, who are you? Because I don't look like this family. I go to school. I'm the only one in my elementary school who looks like me. Not only that, like I'm ashamed because I'm a foster kid. So you have a lot of these dynamics that are like they've created the sense of who you see yourself to be. And I didn't really, at a young age, think I could recreate my identity, but we don't realize that we're always being little by little programmed by teachers, preachers, coaches, leaders, TV, television, movies, radio. Like these things are kind of feeding you thoughts and ideas, and you just grab some of them and you unintentionally create this sense of who you see yourself to be. And then the funny thing about humanity is we will live in a way to make what we think it is right. So we'll do and say and act in ways that keep perpetuating the same problematic space we're living in. And so I kind of broke free of this, I would say accidentally, but with a sense of like intention. It's kind of weird to say it that way. But when I got to 14, I finally got adopted. I stood in front of a judge, severed my mom's parental rights, my biological mom, and finally got adopted. And then I had to go and like kind of become a person. And I didn't know what it looked like. I just knew I wanted to try this thing called football. So I went to go play football. It was the first place in the world I could go and like run around and jump and play and hit people. And they celebrated it. Like I found a sense of place, right? Of my own place. But here's the problem. I wasn't good at it. And when you try something and you are bad at it, not just not good, I sucked at it. You start to question, like, do I keep doing this? And so you start going, gosh, I don't deserve, I am that guy that I thought I was. Why even try? And so I went through this journey for like literally 2 years of trying football and trying to find myself there and going, it's not for me, man. It's just, I can't do this. My mom is sick now. She got diagnosed with MS. And so I was floating around life and I got to an interesting like moment in time in life. But before that moment that kind of shifted things for sure, I was just, the majority of 15 years of my life, I was like, I don't have any clue who I am. All I know myself to be is someone that my mom doesn't care about or love. The world isn't taking care of me and I don't fit in anywhere. That was my knowledge.
Yeah, man. And it's such an incredible spot. I actually did a speech on, I was on 10X Growth Con stage and I got a little 3 minutes. I had 3 minutes and I started it with, who are you? That was the question I asked, right? And I shared about identity, growing up, half black, half white, mom's white, dad's black, parents got divorced when I was 11, remarried. My dad, who's black, remarried a black woman. My mom remarried a white dude. And then we grew up in the apartment complex, right? You know that story. So I shared that story, and I was blown away afterwards because I always thought it was kind of a black-white thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I was blown away by the hundreds and hundreds of people that came up and said, I struggled with my identity too. I was poor and grew up in a rich neighborhood. I was rich and grew up in a poor neighborhood. I was Norwegian, but I grew up in Austerlitz, right? Like all of these people, it's like that we go through this kind of journey as you know, as we mature, as we grow. And it just was mind-boggling to me how many more people it connected with when it comes to that identity thing. I know that Heather and I will talk through a lot of this stuff too, as far as like what makes us believe who we are and how do we apply that into our lives when we do want to make shift and change.
Yeah.
My question in your reel, it said something on the lines, I scratched it down. It said the common denominator to your problems is you. And then when you're explaining to me this little boy where none of this was your fault, right? And it's, you even mentioned earlier, you can understand how some people end up in certain places because of the way the system is structured and trauma that we deal with. So how do you wrestle with being a human being who has natural responses to pain and trauma, and yet accepting this, that the common denominator to all your problems is you? What?
Yeah. Well, so usually I follow that statement up with either you created it or you're allowing it.
Boy.
And I'm not saying that when I was a kid, I created that by any means, right? That's just, I couldn't have. I was thrust into a situation I couldn't control. But if I'm allowing the problem to persist, it's because I'm not taking an action to end. There's a guy I met years ago named Dan Nitro from Gladiator. He says, action ends suffering. And it, for some reason, put a light bulb in my brain. I'm like, oh, so if I'm suffering, an action can end it. Now, it may not be the first 50 actions, right? But there's something I can do to end that. And so what I realized is, for me, even as a kid, what I look back on, where it was a moment when I finally woke up and go, I want to be great at football. And I started working towards it against the understanding of people near me, against ridicule, against even feeling like it was who I was to do it. But the more I did it, the more it became who I was to do it. The more confidence got built, the more skill got built, the more success I had. And it was a steamroll from there. But the thing was, all those problems, I was allowing them to become the reason behind why I was going to do poorly, as opposed to the reason why I would do amazing. And so that's why I say, like, the problem, I may be allowing it by allowing it to control my perspective and my actions in a negative way, when I can just as easily use it as a positive, which I chose to do. And we all can.
I think that's very well put. I've never really been able to express that because you and I were aligned on those feelings, right? But I've never really been able to express it that way. So I appreciate you helping me gain some clarity on how that is. Because yes, you can be a victim of a circumstance, but then ultimately whether you stay a victim to it or not, that's where the choice comes in. I think that's super strong. Hey, Anthony, you've learned a lot of things. Obviously, you've evolved, you've achieved a lot of things, which, by the way, you mentioned Nitro. I interviewed him a few years back on this show.
Real good dude.
Yeah, he was on this show a few years ago.
Yeah.
Pretty amazing guy. Through the different seasons, through the different lessons, I feel like there are things that we can learn from the person we were. And then obviously there's things that you're bringing to the world now, from stages and making an impact for corporations and speaking to thousands and thousands of people. And so I'm curious, if you had to choose one maybe lesson from back then that you'd learned, and then one that you'd learned from your experiences now that you could share with our audience, what would those two things be?
Oh, man. Those are phenomenal questions. I don't usually get asked those questions. I don't get asked a lot of questions I don't have answers for. So it's going to become directly from wherever I got. But I think if I go back in time, the thought I would have back then was here's my reality. I don't really connect with a lot of people from high school. I think most of us can say that. And I think you have this connection, like they are the ones you got to gain acceptance for. And so if I could go back in time, I'd go, only seek your own acceptance. If that makes sense. Like,
Preach.
Because the thing is when I'm going off my teammates, them making fun of me because I'm a skinny guy and like catching stuff, whatever, it's like I go like, yeah, I do suck. Why am I working out, right? But if I go, no, I want to be that guy, I got to do that thing. And so back then, thankfully, like over time, I eventually got into it, but it could have been faster in my opinion. But the idea is like, I only got to make myself proud. What does that look like? Does it look like me working out in the morning? Does it look like me being better at my habits? Does it look not drinking, not partying, right? And so if you stay in line with whatever your specific thing is, I think that's the big key to it, is just try to make yourself happy because you know what that is, right? You, for the most part, know what it is. And if you don't know what it is, it's the thing you don't want to do most of the times, right? It's the thing you know is right, but your body goes, oh, it's going to be hard. So I think that's the first one. At this point in my life, I almost want to say it's tied to setting your own scale. Now, there's a lot that goes into all this, but I find that as I've gone through the journey of the NFL and the television stuff and what I do now, like a lot of people in my world go, oh, you got to have a amazing, modern $5 million house and a Gucci shoes and Louis Vuitton belt. But here's what I've realized in life. I know a lot of people that got a lot of things and not always very happy. Not all of them, they're unhappy. And I go, you know what's giving me a massive amount of peace is that I live in a regular neighborhood with great people who have great hearts, and I'm not worried about money. I think that's all it is. Like, I don't have to have billions of dollars and the whole entire world to know, because at the end of the day, I get on stages in front of 5,000-10,000 people when I come home, and none of them call me to see how I'm doing. But my kids want to hang out with me. My wife wants to hang out with me, right? And so what I do now is I set my own scale, which is my family's priority. This morning, just before we got on, I was working out with my wife and my daughter. My son and he'll do a workout later on. My oldest son, when he's in town, we work out. Like, it's this thing where like we spend time together, we go places together, and that's my center point. That's what I'm working for. Can I make an amazing, joyous, peaceful home and safe life for them? And that's what means the most to me. Outside of that, the rest of it's great. But even in the work I do for the world to show up and speak, I'm doing that really at the end of my day, so that if my kids run into you at some point in time, 20, 30 years from now, and they go, my dad's Anthony Trucks, go, God, was a great guy. Yeah. So even my service to the world is to bring back a sense of like honor to my family, if that makes sense, which is my kids. So I'd say set your own scale. Don't worry about what somebody thinks, because here's the worst part. If you don't do this, you can work incredibly hard and diligently towards anything, right? $1 million business, a $5 million, $10 million. There's going to be someone that comes up and goes, only 10 million?
Oh, yeah.
That's so true.
So I don't want that feeling. I'm going to go, what's my scale? So if you do say that, I go, hey, great. I'm glad it's your goal. This is mine. I'm happy. Let's keep pressing.
I love it, man.
How do you stay grounded with that, though? I mean, because stuff comes up. You know what I mean? How do you personally stay grounded in your goals?
So for me, it's clear. I got them over here on the wall. Like, the goals are there, and that's what I'm working towards. And also, it's a big harmony thing, right? So I don't think life has balance, because if I gave 8 hours to work and then came home and tried to give 8 hours to my wife, she'd slap me in the first hour. She's like, it's too much of you, right? Now I'm joking, but like, if you gave 8 hours to every person, like, you can't do that. But what I have found is there's a beautiful harmony we can have. There's the areas of life where I can go and show up and give to something, but then I can also shut off completely and be present with my family. So the way I've learned my life to be is I can go, look, here's my goal for this. And I can structure my life to work towards that. But I'm only working towards that between 6 a.m. and 2:45 p.m. And then when that time is done, I'm dad. And so I live in that way where it keeps me in a good standing in both sides of the coin, because I find a lot of folks, their life is unhinged outside of work. And then at work, it's hectic too. And I go, why? I started noticing that what they do is they don't get a lot of work done. So they bring their work home. They're working at home. There's tension and kind of friction there. So they bring that energy to work, so they don't get more work done. Work comes home, and it's this crappy cycle. And so what I've done is say, I know what my goals are. They're all, for the most part, self-paced. Not many people are waiting for me to get the thing done. Like we have this, I got to get this done. Well, who told you to get it done? Like, if your boss did, that's different, right? But if it's just your own thing, give yourself some grace, man. Like, the goal, I get you want to reach it, but don't kill yourself, because what happens if you do that, you have nothing for the family, and then you're going to have friction at home, and then you're going to do good work, and it's just a negative cycle. So my goals have been built to where I go, what's a really cool stretch goal? Beautiful. I got this big thing. I go, okay, what can I do on a daily, building into that properly to where I can schedule it, structure it, prepare to where I can rock and roll during my work times, so that when I'm done at 2:45 and I leave to get my kids by 3:09 from school, that I can be present and be dad. I don't got to have my laptop in my lap the entire time we're eating or watching TV, right? So it allows me to have that good harmony, and it keeps the goals in check. And then here's the last part I'll add to this. I've found that many times I achieved the goal, and the goal I achieved was not the goal that I wanted to achieve.
Oh, boy.
Meaning like I go towards something, I get it, and I go, that was cool, but what really like more cool is this friendship I got in this, or just this, this new information I uncovered, or this new introduction to some new world I didn't know. So I'm working towards goals and enjoying the process of working towards them. I love the day more than the destination. So when I love my days, I build towards things, and it unveils more of what I probably wanted but didn't know I wanted.
This is like a breath of fresh air, just this whole conversation. Love it. You don't hear this kind of stuff. You don't hear this, in the whole success industry and all of this, just a very balanced, holistic view and what really matters and prioritizing that. So thank you.
Now, let me ask you this, Anthony. Let me ask you this. Is that seasonal? Is that seasonal talk? And here's what I mean by that. You've got athletes over there at Oregon right now. I'm 19, I'm 20, I'm 21, 22. Yeah. Right. I'm an athlete. I got a kid though. I got a baby, and I'm an athlete, and I'm trying to make it to the NFL, and I'm being told I got to put 800% of my focus on this one thing. And then I hear Anthony saying, well, 305, we can cut it off. And then I need you to hang out and then do the wife and the family. Do you think it's a seasonal thing, or do you think this is a all the time thing?
Yeah. So I was that guy. I think you probably know that's probably why we're bringing it up. Yeah. And I will tell you, I had a good harmony back then. Because here's the thing, you can't literally work out all day long, right? But we did have a rhythm to our life. Like the rhythm was an interesting one. So when I'm trying to go to the NFL, like I had to go and give 2-3 hours there, right? But when I came home, I didn't hop on Madden like everybody else did. I wasn't trying to buy Jordan. I wasn't going to the club. I wasn't partying. We would go bowling, or we'd just go walk at the park. We'd hang out as a family. And so like in my free time, which we all have free time in between our goals. I mean, no one's legitimately like going 7-8 hours of solid straight work. And if you can't do it for long. Studies were done by Inc. magazine that found that an 8-hour day, the average person can do focused work of 2 hours and 57 minutes. Now, let's say you're beyond average. You can do maybe 6 hours of focused dialed in work. You still got another 10 hours you're awake-ish, so the way I look at that is like, it's just really saying, yes, you can drive hard in the hours you're supposed to. Most of us are just distracted. Like in the time I'm supposed to work on something, I'm on my phone, I'm doing this, and I go, I don't get the time. Like, well, cut off the television show and go hang and don't hang with people. Do the thing you're supposed to do. Lock your brain into the chair and work, right? So yes, the guy's got a kid, cool. Let's say you spend 6 hours a day training. Spend the other 10 doing something with your family, or take care of nutrition. Don't be in the Madden. Don't go hang with your boys. Like, lock in for what's most important for you. Every person on this planet is given the same time. We just do different dumb stuff with it. It's very interesting. But that's
the quote. That's the quote for today. That's good.
It's all about that investment, right? Investing that time and getting that ROI. Indeed. Yeah. I love it.
And just so you guys know, too, I don't know if I said this or we've talked about it, but the way that I know this is when I got done with the NFL, I came home and opened a gym, and I poured the same energy into that I did everything else, which was that like it was the only thing that mattered. And I was gone from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. each day. My wife had 4-year-old newborn twins. We got divorced for 3 years. I lost my family because of what I'm telling you about. This isn't coming from some little book I read. This is my life being torn apart for 3 straight years before we eventually figured ourselves out separately, but simultaneously. And I found out what I needed to do to be a great husband, a great father. And so we're almost 8 years deep in a remarriage. And I've lived this now and both sides of the coin. So I'm talking from genuine experience of being at the rock bottom of it all.
Yeah, man, which I appreciate.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah. What, okay, man, the boy you described earlier, and I know I heard in another talk that you acted out quite a bit as a young man, understandably, with all the stuff that you've been through and all that. The dissonance between that boy that you described and the man that's sitting in front of us now talking about balance and harmony and what you've worked for and all of that stuff. Mm-hmm. What was the shift in your life? Because we talked a little bit about your mindset shift, but was there like a pivotal moment in your life where a mentor or something that happened? Because for you to go from that to this is just incredible.
There were different moments. So talking about identity, I always call identity kind of like an operating system in a computer, right? And at some point in time, you got to get a new computer, update it, go from like an Android to an Apple because it's better. But at some point you have to elevate.
Fire shot.
It's okay. I'll just hide back here behind the scenes on that one. I'm just going to hide right back here.
We had to throw it in there. I couldn't help it. I'm a speaker, the thoughts come in. But the idea is like that we're going to get to a point where we can't, like what we have, the hardware and software can't handle what our life's asking of us,
so
right?
good.
Got to get a new one. So for me, at multiple stages, this happened. When I was 15, I all of a sudden, a girl said something. I go, I don't want to be this. She said, the reason I'm so bad is because I'm in foster care. And I go, ooh, that's how I'm talking inside. I don't like that. So I went to the drawing board and I built up this guy who was lifting weights all day and running routes. And I had this sense of like, I've done too much work in the dark to lose in the light. I built this sense of power and identity from my efforts. And that guy took me to the next level to college. I get to college and I wasn't prepared for that. It happened again. If I wanted to go to the next level, I had to increase my intensity and my effort, and I had to build this sense of self to realize I belonged here, right? So I do that. Then I go to the NFL. Same thing happens. I come home, my life falls apart, and I go, I'm not ready for this thing. I have to do the exact same thing through this dark window of time between those 3 years of like, who's Anthony? And how did my life get this way? And I go, gosh, you know what? I have to take some ownership of this, because if I don't, then any actions that I think I could take, I'll never take, because I think the actions won't do anything. That's the hopeless place people get, is they go, well, she did this and the work did this. Why even try? And I go, no. If you blame it on them, you're going to think you have no control. You're giving yourself this horrible built-in excuse to fail for the rest of your life. Or you go, where did I have some control? And so to answer your question in a more succinct way, I realized that every moment in my life when I elevated, I went through this window of like dark work, I call it, it's my brand for identity. It's on the microphone here. And what essentially is, it's the work you do in the dark so you can win in the light. And it's not just to achieve, but it's the things you do that are unsexy, that are misunderstood, often ridiculed, they challenge you in the dark, that when you kind of step in, I say emerge into the light, you have a different sense of yourself. I call it a dominator's identity, which just means to govern and control, right? You can control a meditation routine and dominate that, right? But the idea is I'm in control now, and it gives you this different mentality you operate with, which is I've done too much work in the dark to lose in the light. I'm going to succeed in my business. I'm going to succeed in my health. I'm going to succeed in my marriage, because I've done that unsexy, misunderstood, ridiculed work. I've done that. So I deserve to have this. And when we believe we deserve something, we fight different. The way I can metaphorically frame this,
good.
If you look at athletes, I don't know any athlete that's done stuff like Tom Brady has, or guys like Kobe or Michael, right? What happens is they do these things that are so difficult and hard in the background beyond what most logical humans would do. So when it comes to the game day, they're not sitting there going, I don't know if I can do it. They go, let me loose. Like, hey, you have no idea. That's a whole different sense of like, you have no idea what's about to step in front of you, right? That's earned. It's earned. And the only way you earn it is in the dark when nobody's watching. And so what I look at is the areas that I was in my life elevating, it was always part of that. It was always stuff in the dark that I was doing, that it was gritty. It was difficult. I fought for it. But when I emerged to the light to the next stage of my life, I fought for it because I knew I deserved it already.
So what is the next stage for you, and what is the work you're doing in the dark right now?
I was going to ask that.
To get to it. That's what I want to know.
Yeah. Well, the last 2 years we've been developing the brand dark work. Here's interesting. I'm a man of faith. I believe God puts some interesting things in front of you. And I've always had this brand called Identity Shift. It's make shift happens, kind of like the tagline we use. And then I always give on stage and I talk about it. In one meeting, our team has this statement of like, hey, what's this thing you talk about in the dark? And I go, like, I just did this dark work. They go, ooh, like, what is that? And so I started diving more into what it was, playing with the language, giving it to the world. And people go, I love this. They could connect to it for the first time. And so what I realized was I had gone through almost a decade of like this online coaching, consulting, speaking, like, developing thoughts and helping people's lives. And I believe that God was holding off on the real thing that was supposed to be my future until I was ready for it. And so a couple years ago, I happened across the idea, and I had this part of my heart goes, this is the one, don't break it. And so what I've been doing in the dark is like developing everything you can imagine. We have a whole 73-page document on what the brand language is, what the heart is, who it's for. The visuals are a whole separate document. A whole new website that actually just got delivered to me, which I'm still in the process of like refining and fine-tuning. Sure. Apparel stuff, books, like we've already been doing consulting with it, speeches with it. And I'm just kind of solidifying it before it truly becomes this launch that I give. Because when I do, it's the thing that for me is a gift to the world that's not just Anthony. And what I mean by that is this. If you look at studies of the most accepted and, we'll call it revered brands, they're the ones that don't have a human tied to it, but they just believe in what the brand believes in. I don't know, say Red Bull or, No Fear. Like, you don't know who that is. Is it Bob behind the scenes? I don't know. But it's a message that the world can anchor to regardless of whether they like you or not. And that's what I've been trying to develop, because I believe when I leave this planet, if I do it right, you won't even know that it was me behind, but it'll be something that you or your mom or your grandma or someone can latch onto and go, I've been battling addiction or they've been battling addiction, for the last 10 years, but this idea came into their heart and they get it and it makes sense. And so day by day, they develop this sense of doing that dark work, and they eventually emerge and they're a person that's doing something amazing or serving people that are in the place they used to be, but like they not know me. But it's only going to happen if I develop it properly. So my dark work has been developing dark work so the world can go out and do the same kind of things for themselves, regardless of whether they like me or not. Because I guarantee that if it's all Anthony Trucks, all it takes is you going, I don't like that guy's clothes. I don't like how he sounds. And I'm not going to buy into that brand, right? And so the idea is I want to have a brand that's separate from me. And so it's been developed to be its own separate entity in that manner.
Love it, man. I love it. Sounds fascinating.
I got a doozy real quick. I know we're running out of time, but you were explaining earlier about these leveled up things. I was thinking about the alter ego and how a lot of athletes use an alter ego to kind of go into these different states. And I'm curious, is there a contrast? Is it rub up against doing dark work? Because sometimes when you go into these alternate identities in order to go to the next level, sometimes it seems that could hinder our own inner healing or maybe avoid our inner healing. So how do we balance those upgrades to our software, aka alter egos, and also to enter into a dark workspace?
Yeah. There's a great guy that has a book, which I'm sure you know of, Todd Herman has. It's called The Alter Ego. I know Todd's a great human being. His work's amazing, actually. Been a lot of stuff with different people, but I look at it kind of like this. His work's built in a concept of like identity, same as mine, but it's like I get a totem and I'm going to go rock. I'm going to create this guy and it's going to show up. Like the Mamba had the Mamba mentality, right? And that guy was who you saw in the court. But the way I look at it is I don't want it to be something I switch on. I want it to be something that's your daily. Because if you think about it, the Mamba you might have seen on the basketball court, right? He switched on and he went. But who he was as a human was the guy getting up at 4 a.m, getting a practice in before you got to practice. So when you guys were practicing, it was the second practice of the day. That was Kobe. He didn't call that Mamba. There was the guy that showed up for the games, right? But the guy that was the daily, that's what I'm helping people develop. And so what happens is, yes, you will get in the dark and face certain things, but your job is to get to the point where you outwork that guilt, you outwork the doubt, because you've got these days and months and years stacked up of going, no, I have done this. And I've done it so long and so difficult. I've pushed past the days when I didn't want to do it. This is who I am now. And that person's the one who can click on that totem and rock and roll.
Go. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. Anthony, you're amazing. And I am excited to get to know you even more off camera. Now that we've had this second session together, we've got a lot to talk about as my guest. But before I let you go out of here, there's something that I need to do. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put you up on top of a mountain real quick.
Oh, boy.
All right. You are on top of a mountain. I want you to just visualize the biggest mountain on planet Earth. You are at the top of the mountain. And at the base of the mountain is all of civilization. There's 8 billion people. And they're cheering your name. Anthony, 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 Anthony. And I don't know who it is, but somebody walks over and hands you a microphone. And they say, Anthony, you've got 2 minutes. 2 minutes to drop something on them, practical application wisdom, something they can apply in their life today, this week, this month, this year. What are you going to tell them?
You could say 15% or more I'm just kidding. If you could, for a 15-minute call on Geico. No, to be honest, I would say this. You cannot attain or sustain a vision above your current identity. Your habits, your patterns, your actions. If you want that next thing, you have to become that next thing. And it doesn't happen by accident. No one's going to walk up and stumble and fall into $1 million or their life's purpose or an amazing marriage. What happens is you get to the point where you will not only fight because you desire to have something, you fight to where you know you deserve it, but you'll fight for it when you have it because you know the work you did to get it. And the only way to have that happen is by you not going big. Most people go, I want to go big and have this amazing. That's not going big. It's going small in the biggest way you've ever done. The simple, small thing you do every single day, it builds and it builds and it builds to where the thing that was hard to do is eventually hard not to do. The conversations, the phone calls, the meetings, the working out. And when that becomes your set point and your tick, when everybody else battles doing it and you do it because it's who you are, you have now built into something new. And the way it happened is not in the light. It's not the cheers. No one's going to say, good job. In fact, they're going to go, what are you doing? You're a crazy person. That's called dark work. It's the unseen, unsexy, it's difficult, it's ridiculed, it's misunderstood work that when you do it, it doesn't just develop a skill set, but a brazenness, an identity, a dominator's identity to deploy that skill set into the world, to make the money, make the impact, make the life you want, not only because you now fight for it, but you know you deserve it, so you fight to keep it.
God, that was so good.
I'm done.
Yeah.
That's it.
I enjoy what I do.
Folks,
Thank you.
You're the smallest thing in the biggest way you've ever done. That is so freaking good.
Unbelievable. Anthony, if people want to, not if, everyone who watches this is going to want to connect with you, what is the easiest way for them to do that? Where do you want me to send them?
Oh, man. 2 places. One is go to @AnthonyTrucks on Instagram. It's where I live and survive and exist. It's like the place I'm present. And then if you want at some point, go to darkwork.com. When the site goes live, it'll be a whole lot on there.
Awesome. Do you have a morning routine? What's your morning routine?
My morning routine. I have paused it as of late because it's a whole different family conversation because my son's part of my morning routine. But we typically get up at 6 in the morning, or I do. At 6:25, we wake him up at 6:30. We leave the house. We do a hike to the top of a hill nearby. We do a circle around so we can see miles around. We breathe the day in. We do gratitude. What am I grateful for? We hold hands. We pray on it. We come back down. We do a 2-minute cold plunge in 48-degree water. We get out. We do a meditation for 10 minutes. Now, we haven't done this for a bit because I don't want him to do it because he's forced to do it.
Right.
Meaning, I want him to do it because he understands that he's doing something difficult and hard for a benefit for his future life. So we did it for a year and a half. We've now paused for probably like the last 3-4 weeks now. And I want to get back to it. So my routine's separate. So I do get up, I do read, I do some breathe, like meditation, breath work stuff. Just I want to be in control of my day before I get into all my crazy emails and stuff. So for me, I can be centered as I know who I want to be today and be that guy. If not, the email takes and my emotions and it runs with it. And it's not 1 or 2 o'clock. I go, oh dang, I'm not in control of this day emotionally. So I started the way I want.
Amen, bro. How old's your son?
14 years. He's at that good young man, got to become a man age, and he is battling it. He doesn't want to grow up. It's funny. He's like a Toys R Us kid.
I got a bunch of them, and I will tell you this: that the morning 5. That's why Heather talked about morning routines. We talk about morning routines. I've got a very disciplined morning routine, and I'm like you. I don't want the kids to do it because they feel like they have to. I want them to understand it and dive in. And just recently, my daughter. She just turned 13 years old. So she just turned 13. And all of a sudden, she's picking the planner up. She's doing the stuff. I haven't had to ask her to do it. Like, it's been pretty amazing. So you're right at that age. I think the boys take a little bit longer to catch on, is what I've been told anyway. Us boys us boys and us Google phone guys, we take a little while longer to catch on. But it sounds like you're right there. Anthony, you're amazing. Thanks so much for being on Rise and Grind.
Thank you.
It's been incredible. I'm going to say goodbye to my friends over here, and I'll see you here again very shortly. Is that fair?
Fair. Take care, man. Pleasure. Thank you guys for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, the one and only Anthony Trucks. I need you to do me a huge favor. You know what we do with this community. I need you to blow him up today. I want him to be so annoyed. I want him to send me a message, say, Glenn, tell them to leave me alone. Blow him up. Send him an encouraging message. Let him know something valuable you took away from today's episode or from his talk. Make sure you connect with them. Anthony Trucks, the one and only. And for the rest of you, enjoy your weekend. Thanks for being here with us. We greatly appreciate it. We'll be back Monday morning, 5:30 a.m. We'll do it all over again right here on #Rise and Grind.
Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Stay woke, stay woke, stay woke, stay woke. #Rise and